you've watched this channel for a little while, you would have seen my relationship with Alfa Romeo go from strength to strength. They're now a brand which I hold really fondly. It seems to be a car enthusiast thing. It's that Italian heritage and just the fact that they're a little bit different. I've driven the Stelvio Quadrifoglio and absolutely loved that car. I've also driven the Tonale, and whilst it doesn't feel like a proper Alfa Romeo, it does have its own uniqueness within the industry. But there was one model left to drive, and it's arguably the most important one. That's the Giulia. Sure, I haven't started with the Quadrifoglio, but I've started with the Veloce, which in my eyes is the perfect everyday car. It has all the ingredients for the ultimate recipe of a car that you can live with. But is it the ultimate daily driver? Well, hopefully I'm going to find out in this video. If you want to find out the answer to those questions, then please keep watching. And if you do like new car reviews and car content, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Right, so let's start with the styling, because in 2023, the Giulia did have a few exterior changes along with the Stelvio, which brought it in line with the Tonale and the rest of the Alfa Romeo range. What did those include? Well, they're very, very small tweaks, but they did include the new headlights. So they're now in this 3 formation design. The clusters also feature adaptive lighting technology, which adjusts the dipped beam according to speed and driving conditions. The 3 light setup plays homage to Alfas of great, for example the SZ, proving that the brand isn't forgetting their heritage. Meanwhile, the rear clusters are also new and use smoked glass. The one thing that seems to be missing for me on the Veloce trim is a little bit of contrast. I feel like there's a lot of block base colour going on. You have got the contrasting wing mirrors and you've also got touches of gloss black in the grille, but I do think it could have done with a little bit more gloss black just to break up the full flow of the car. That could have included some trims along the bottom of the door sills and also on the boot spoiler as well, although these are all things that you could add yourself if personally that's something you think would make the car look better. I'm kind of saying that about myself. If I thought they needed those touches, they wouldn't be too hard to add. I do really miss the trims of carbon fibre that you get with the Quadrifoglio, but for £20,000 more, it seems a big step up if you just wanted to get the extra exterior changes. I still love the fact that with the Veloce, you get those telephone dial wheels. They're so unique to Alfa Romeo, and I really do love those. Once again, I'd probably like a pair of different coloured brake calipers, but personally that's just because I'd want to make this car look a bit sportier. In fact, I think they haven't got enough with the sporty styling when it comes to this car, because let's face it, 270 brake horsepower is not slow, but it definitely looks like a sleeper in my opinion, although that's definitely going to appeal to a wider audience. There is actually a third trim of the Giulia coming, which is going to be the Competizione, and very similar to when they used that in a bath, you're going to have a matte paint colour, you're going to have some contrasting brake calipers, so maybe for me personally that would be the trim that I would go for. The rear view of the Giulia actually looks quite sporty, and that's helped along by some twin tailpipes, but unfortunately they don't actually make the best exhaust sound, which I'll try to demonstrate when I actually get out on the road. It's a little bit of a shame. For what is quite a powerful engine, you would expect a slightly more powerful exhaust, but once again, these are quite simple things that you could change with some tasteful upgrades. Despite being a saloon, making it not always the most practical loading space, you will find 480 litres of space in the back of the Giulia. That's on par with the C-Class and also the BMW 3 Series, and that's plenty for a few suitcases or loads and loads of shopping. I can't see you needing for any more than that. People do quite often say that you're not really a true car enthusiast until you've at least driven an Alfa Romeo, and I do think there's some truth to that comment. Yes, they're not quite engineered as they used to be, but they still have driving engagement at the core of pretty much every part of their brand. Well, apart from the Tonale. But when it comes to both the Stelvio and the Giulia, they are absolutely set up to all be about driving engagement. Sure, being the Veloce trim, it means that it doesn't have a V6 under the bonnet, and it doesn't have that raucous noise that you get from the Quadrifoglio. But that doesn't mean that it's not missing out on the driving engagement. Some cars, when they're not in their performance trims, will pretty much lose all of that driving engagement and the things that make it such a good car to drive. Whereas this car, though it doesn't have the V6 most powerful engine, it still has a really, really good driver setup, which means even in this 2-litre 4-cylinder 280 brake horsepower engine, it's still a lot of fun to drive. The chassis is really, really well composed. You've got a limited slip differential, so that means that it's not going to slide around too much in the wet. But that's the thing with cars like this, you kind of want them to slide around a little bit. That's what makes them so much fun. If you speak to a car enthusiast, they'll tell you that their favourite cars are performance BMWs, things that have a little bit of play about them, and that is exactly where this car also falls into the category of. The Giulia can seat 5 people, but because of how significant the transmission tunnel is in the centre, you're only really going to want to carry 4 passengers. The middle seat's there kind of as an emergency, but for 4 passengers it would be quite comfortable. This seat's pretty far back, I've still got a little bit of legroom left, and I've got plenty of headroom. Headroom shouldn't be a problem at all, and it's really comfortable back here as well. That high quality leather interior is still trimmed onto the rear. You've got a nice pull-out armrest which feels nice and secure, and you've got a couple of air vents back here as well. You have only got 1 USB port, and the door cards are not enormous, so you're not going to fit much in there in the way of storage. But for a 4-seater, it's pretty good. Just like the external changes for 2023, internal changes are very, very small as well. They mainly just include a new digital instrument cluster which has been brought across from the Tonale. This is customizable with different driving modes, and you also get that lovely startup graphic of the lights of the Giulia when you turn on the car, which I really like. If you are after old school styling, then that's exactly what you get in the Alfa. I really like how it still feels very classic. Of course, if you go for BMW or if you go for Mercedes, you get lots of screens, lots of bright lights, whereas in here it just feels very classic. You've got lots of leather, lots of really lovely materials. You've also got this detailing down the centre console which almost looks like carbon, but it's not plastic, it's not carbon, it's just a high quality material. I really like that. I also love the fact that you still get a really big physical gear stick. So unlike other Stellantis products where they're going for the rocker switch instead, you still get this nice gear selector which you can tap to the side to put it in manual, which you're going to want to do because the Giulia, just like some of the performance models, gets the massive steel gear selectors behind the steering wheel, which are so much fun to use and make this car really engaging. Storage is pretty good. You've got quite a lot of storage in the centre armrest with some wireless charging and connectivity. You also get 2 cup holders, somewhere to pop your key, and you also get a little bit of storage up the front with an extra USB charge point as well. Door cards are small, but I think there's enough storage elsewhere for it to not matter. This car is mated to an 8-speed automatic gearbox, and most of the time it's really good. There is a slight delay when you're first kind of picking up speed, but once you get going, it's really, really good. The only thing I will say about this automatic gearbox, well, it's not really about the gearbox, but it's actually about where you read your gears on the dashboard. To start with, I couldn't work out what gear I was in, and I didn't know how to tell what gear I was in, and that's because where it reads out your gears is hidden literally just on the dashboard in front of the steering wheel. So if you like to sit down nice and low like I do, you'll find that you will actually lose the ability to read what gear you're in, which is really annoying. And I've played around with the setup because I'd like to have it kind of in the digital instrument cluster, but I can't seem to be able to put it there, which is a bit of a shame. You'll just have to kind of adjust your seating position, and really other people have driven this car and not had an issue. It is because I like to sit like a bit of a rude boy, which is probably my own fault, but that is a very, very small kind of niggle about this car. In terms of how easy it is to drive, it's fantastic. And like I said, I really like being able to change the kind of infotainment system and change the map and the radio using the scroller. It's brilliant really, and it stops you fiddling around with the screen. You've still got a physical climate control dial, so again that's really easy to use when driving. And just around town, I mean, if we pop it back into normal mode, it stays really well composed. It's a very, very good car. The setup is quite firm, it's very slightly bumpy, but then you want that because you want that kind of engagement tweak to it. You want it to be geared more towards engagement than it is completely down to comfort, because if you want a car which is just a comfortable cruiser, then you're probably not going to be opting for an Alfa Romeo. You'll probably go for something which is well known for being a bit of a wafter, something like a Mercedes. The Alfa does actually feel well balanced between the two. It's good at being an everyday car, but it's also really good at being that engaging car to drive as well. And I think if you're fed up of boring cars, then this could be the one to go for, because it kind of makes you fall in love because you have that quirky detailing, because it's a little bit different from what else is out there. It makes it feel a little bit special, especially compared to kind of all the other mundane cars on the road. It's actually hard not to fall in love with the charms of the Alfa Romeo. I think that comes down to just how unique it is and how many or how little there are on the road. It makes it feel like you're owning something special. And the cool thing is as well is not that many people really know about Alfa Romeo or know about their history. And you'll find that the people that do know about Alfa Romeo are the people that absolutely love cars. And that means that people want to come and talk to you about it, which I think is kind of cool. If you're looking for something which is the perfect blend between driver engagement, practicality, and also something that's a bit unique, it doesn't really get any better than this. So it's a car which ticks a lot of boxes. It stands out from the likes of Audi and BMW, and though it doesn't have the same level of equipment and doesn't feel quite as modern as those models, what it does have is that quirkiness, and ultimately it's just so fantastic to drive. But let me know, what do you think of the Alfa Romeo Giulia? Would this be the model that you would choose, or would you go for one of those German rivals? If you would, let me know why and pop it in the comments down below. I really hope you've enjoyed this video today, guys. If you have, please go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. And if you want to see more from me on this channel, Auto Social UK, then you know what to do. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Until next time, see you later.